toxic substance as a mere household garbage. So Big Coal can continue dumping with this benign label. So we need the public comment. There's only one more day to submit a comment to the EPA asking an agency to treat coal ash as a hazardous waste product so that we are aware of these contaminants so that we can treat them in the way that we need to keep ourselves safe. Okay, so one more day to take action on that. So that's our wrap up of the overview for world news, and as we relate to that on a local level, the most intimate thing that we live with choice by choice, day by day, whether we're even aware of it, is how we exercise our values through our behaviors, through our choices, through the ways we choose to model and be the best we can. Living our values every day is the last line of the Eartheart Network pledge, and the real challenge of creating our best life, one that engages the passionate stirrings of our heart and creates healthy relationships with first ourselves and with those around us, with our local communities, cities, and the world. What does a life living our values really look like? What does it really feel like as you're fully engaged in that real, it's called Dharma Karma Yoga, the real engagement of your purpose in fulfilling work and service, your right livelihood? What does that really feel like? And how can we do it more and more? That's what we're going to explore now with our guest, Randy Siegel. He's here tonight, and Randy is a wonderful expert who has spent years, over 20 years, as a nationally recognized expert in helping people stand in their power. If we have that graphic of Randy available, but he helps people by building the successful careers and meaningful lives of leaders of organizations. He's helped people in Earthlink, the Recording Academy, the Grammy Awards, Georgia MBA programs, and others. He's authored 3 books, written articles for numerous publications, and as I was exploring Randy's website, I noticed he had a huge amount of media resources and times that he's been guests on different shows and programs and encouraging people to really live from their core values and their passion. So hopefully you can please help me welcome my guest, Randy Siegel. Hi, Randy.
Great to be here, Lisa. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. I'm so glad. You know, the one thing we are blessed with here in Asheville is amazing people. The most amazing people are right around the corner, and Randy's one of those people. But,
well, thank you.
But you go all over the world, don't you, and talk to different organizations?
I do. Organizations hire me to work with their high-potential employees in leadership and communication skills.
Oh.
And then I work with individuals who find themselves at a crossroads and they're not quite sure which way to go. And I help them find their internal GPS.
Right, so you have this phrase you've coined, your internal GPS.
Absolutely.
Your true north, a compass for, and then you attach it to your journey home.
Absolutely.
Your true self. Is that where we're headed?
Absolutely. And one of the most important things, as you mentioned, is knowing your core values. Knowing what are those guideposts in which you live your life. Yes. Eckhart Tolle tells us that we have both an external and an internal purpose. The external purpose is how do we want to be of service to the world? Mm-hmm. How do we want to use our gifts, our skills, our attributes to be of service, to help other people? And our internal purpose is how do we want to live our life? And when we think about an internal purpose, one of the easiest ways we can do that is by simply, although sometimes it's not so simple, identifying our core values and then pledging to live our life by those core values.
Right, and you know, it's amazing because tonight, when I was actually this week, when I was preparing, I was thinking, you know, what is an inspiring thing that really speaks to the core value question? And, you know, it's a great thing to ask. I mean, you're obviously very vital and filled with life. You're helping people pursue their passion. That's what Eartheart Network is all about, is encouraging people to really listen to their heart, really listening, asking, and then finally knowing, once you're willing to ask, what is that true purpose and passion? And, you know, but the unfortunate and the great opportunity, of course, to shift is that so many people are living lives devoid of passion and purpose and their core purpose and values, and oftentimes feeling a sense of desperation. And it was really ironic because I was considering bringing this little quote And then I thought, well, I'm not sure if it applies to our conversation. And then I went to your website, and right on the front of your website was the same author that I was wondering if I should. So I thought this is so perfect. And it was Robert Johnson.
Oh, absolutely.
I went
Dear
into
friend.
the library for inspiration. I love books. I have many, many years of self-development books and every kind of book you could think of. And I just thought something inspiring for this week's show. And I pulled out the book We.
Absolutely.
And chapter 2 begins with the child of sadness. And, you know, just speaking to that desperate sense of really wanting to live from a life of purpose and passion. And Robert Johnson says, pursuit of power, production, prestige, accomplishment impoverishes us and drives us from the feminine values out of our lives. It's like that masculine go, do, be more at the expense. A prior guest on the show, Maureen Healy, and I were talking about appreciating in children their sensitivity, their artfulness, their playfulness, rather than just go get that grade on that test. You know, appreciating that little softer side, that part of you that is that spark of passion and purpose. And he was saying, Western people are children of inner poverty. Though outwardly we have everything, probably no other people in history have been so lonely, so alienated, so confused over values, so neurotic. We have dominated our environment with sledgehammer force and electronic precision. We amass riches on an unprecedented scale, but few of us, very few of us indeed, are at peace with ourselves, content in our loves, or at home in the world. Most of us cry out for meaning in life, for values we can live by.
Absolutely, but Lisa, we're in a very exciting time now, I believe. After the Great Recession, what we're starting to see, I believe, is what is called a great value shift. And it's slow, but it's sure. And we're seeing some things that are developing. For instance, we're seeing a shift from materialism to meaning, back to what you're talking about, back to a sense of purpose. We're seeing a shift from me to we, from individualism to collectivism, from branding to banding. We're starting to realize that what I do affects the whole. We're seeing a shift from transactions to trust. We're seeing that instead of ka-ching, making things happen, that these transactions will never happen until trust has been generated. In fact, I believe you're going to see that collection will become the next currency. We're seeing a shift from blame to responsibility. Take a look at the recent oil spill crisis. It was very easy for us to point a finger at BP. But when we do that, there are four fingers pointing back to us. What are we doing individually? What are we doing to affect the environment? So these things hold hope for us. One of the shifts you mentioned as well is we're seeing a shift from the masculine to the feminine in many ways. We're seeing a shift from the cognitive to the emotive. In the past, we know that we have three centers of intelligence. We have our head, we have our heart, we have our gut. And in the past, we've mostly valued what's been in our head or our cognitive sense. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing the importance of emotion, the importance of getting to our emotion and how that helps us, again, to connect. So I believe we're in a very exciting time, that we're seeing a value shift and that it's coming.
It's very exciting. The whole basis of Eartheart Network News is that the shift of the heart being the seat of a expanded intelligence and the mind in service of the heart, it's sort of the masculine and feminine shifting. We've had the mind running off the cliff pretty much wild. You know, we're really in service. I think the mind and the logic and the linear is to be in service of that expanded awareness that needs the details put in order. But we've got to keep our focus heart-centered, connected, global citizenry, a whole new concept of living connected, coherent. You know, I don't know if you're aware of some of the compelling scientific data about the heart being coherent and measurable with the Earth's magnetic field correlating to that same frequency, you know, and so it is totally happening, but yet so many people, and then with all of the media, they're susceptible to their fear or their doubt.
Absolutely.
So how do we get people strengthened up with those core values and really getting energy from coming from that place?
Well, as you mentioned, one of the most important things is we all want to stand in our power. We all want to stand in our power and be the full expression of all that we are. So why on earth would we just operate off of one center of intelligence, i.e. our head? So all of us want to be operating off of all three, head, heart, and gut, and then that will allow us to be our best. But getting back to what you said with core values, it becomes imperative for us to identify the values in which we live our life. And that's a process. It's a process I've written about in my book, it's The Inspired Life. And what I've learned is, and I learned this from a friend of mine that's sick, in fact, a friend here in Asheville. And what he taught me was, of all the values that are out there, there are none that are more important than two, and they both begin with a C: connection and contribution. That's connection to self, to others, to higher power or purpose, and contribution. What are we giving back to the world? If we concentrate on those two simple values, connection and contribution, I believe, in fact, I know that we will become our best selves and live our best life.
Yeah, once we decide we're going to connect with our own passion, our own value, and then we actually go out there to contribute it, suddenly we're having those relationships, those new healthy relationships based on coming from that place. So it changes the whole playing field immediately, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And what it is that we start to learn that when we live by our values, even the simplest decisions determine them. For instance, I'll give you an example. Several weeks ago, I was teaching at the University of Georgia, and my brother lives halfway between Athens, Georgia, and between Asheville. And I thought, you know, I haven't seen my brother. I should stop and visit him. But I'm so busy, and it would be great to get back and have an opportunity to really delve down and get into some work. And I then remembered the two values that I live my life by, connection and contribution. I made that time, and it was the right decision to make.
Right, and then every other step from there changed. You know, everything you do in one moment can shift every other moment.
Absolutely.
And somehow that connection affected your life and his life on some level, and everyone around you, you know. So just one little step to go ahead and trust your heart and move from that core. So what are some other ways that people can really ask the basic question to know how far they are maybe off the core, how to live that more inspired life, like you say in your book?
Well, what's really interesting is we can look at our calendars and see where we spend our time, and that is the most accurate way for us to determine what our true values are. It's easy for me to tell you that integrity, for instance, is a true value of mine, but it may be a value, but it may not be one of my core values in which I entirely live my life. So what I do is I work with clients to determine no more than 4. The mind's a fragile thing. Any more than 4, we might blow a gasket. But to determine the 4 values that are the most important to them. And then to do an audit of their life and look at literally everything that they are doing and the decisions they're making to determine if those core values are indeed guiding them.
Right. I did an exercise from a book called Your Best Year Yet. I think you probably are familiar. And it was a really good exercise I enjoyed, and I thought it relates well to something we might incorporate into our discussion, was how you have all these roles in your life. You know, and I think you allude to that, examining the roles you play, right? And looking at those roles and then saying, okay, where am I out of balance with the roles, you know? And then you can see when you draw them in a circle, one's really off, out of whack, where you spend way too much time. One is over there shriveled up and not getting enough time, but yet that's something that's important to you. So then you start to create more of a rounder, balanced picture, you know, and just a graphical way. And then I was thinking of, you know, if we have like 7 areas in our life, like a rainbow, and each of those things goes out, and key relationships, then we're expanding and creating that connection in our community, being those global citizens, being those earth stewards, in those relationships, you know, when we're coming from those passionate places in ourselves.
Absolutely. And what's so interesting, Lisa, is when we look at the roles that we're playing in our life, quite often we find that we are playing some roles that no longer work for us. They're roles that we adapted in high school or as children that at the time may have worked or not, but we're still holding on to them. I'll give you a quick example. I was a fat kid and used to wear Huskies.
It's kind of hard to believe.
But, I was a fat kid and still had a fat kid mentality. And recently I was at a health club, and there was a group that was going biking, and I went to join that group, and they were all dressed in their biking gear with all their Lycra and stuff. And
right, they all look like exotic animals.
Absolutely. And of course I was dressed in baggy pants and a t-shirt and what have you. And the leader came up to me and said, you know, this is going to be a very strenuous bike. You might want to consider going on another one. And immediately I thought of the role of the fat kid. And I saw the little boy in Huskies, and I thought, you know, maybe this is too tough for me. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And then I thought, no, I'm going to do it. Well, I did it, and I left those guys with the like or in the dust, and ended up being one of the first people to finish